All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so what I wanted to do today was go back and review a couple of lessons that we talked about before break. So lesson 1, we talked about powers and exponents. So remember, a product of like factors can be written using a base and an exponent. So with the base is the number that's being multiplied over and over again. The exponent tells us how many there are. So remember, the base is the big number. The exponent is that small number that goes above it. Okay, so all you're doing for this first part here is they are going to give you a multiplication sentence like this, an expanded form. So they want you to write it using an exponent. So we have 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, so our base would be 4 because that's the number being multiplied over and over again. Okay, and then the exponent tells us how many there are. So you just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your exponent is 5. Okay, so that's how those work. Now remember, this is not 4 times 5. It's this right here. There's 5 fours being multiplied together. So it's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. All right, so down here, I want to do a couple together. So number 1. All right, we have 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, that means there are, there are 3 4s. So our base would be 4 because that's the number being multiplied over and over again. Now, to count them up to find our exponent, we just, like I said, count them. 1, 2, 3. So our exponent is 3. And that's all they want you to do for right now. We're not solving them. We're just writing them in exponential form with an exponent. So like number 2, okay, we have 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. So our base would be 7. The exponent now would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 to the 5th power. Okay, so that's all we need to do right now. We're not actually solving these out. So like number 6, we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, this is the reason why we use exponents, because that way you guys don't have to write this out over and over and over again. Okay, it makes it a lot easier for us. So the number that's being multiplied over and over again is our base. So that's 2. Now we just count them up to find our exponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2 to the 7th power. And that's how you write it. Okay? So right now, I want you guys to do 3, 4, 5. So I'll give you a couple minutes. I just want you to do 3, 4, and 5. All right, here we go. So number 3. Okay, we have 9 times 9 times 9 times 9. So the base is what? 9. That's the number being multiplied over and over again. So then we count them up to figure out our exponent. So what's our exponent? 4. So that would be read as 9 to the 4th power. Now number 4, we have 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. Okay, what would be our base? 8. Okay, and then what would be our exponent? 6. So you got to count them up, and there's 6 of them, so it'd be 8 to the 6th power. And then number 5, we have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. What's our base? 1. And then how many are there? Then that would be our exponent. 4. So that would be read as 1 to the 4th power. Okay, any questions on that part? All right, so now we're going to go on to the next part of this. So now the next part, they want you to write it out like we did here and then solve it. So they're giving you the exponential form, and they want you to write it in expanded form. So write it out as multiplication and then solve it. So like example number 2, we have 3 to the 4th power. Okay, so that means there's 4 3s, not 3 times 4. It's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. You have to write it out like that. Okay, then you multiply it out. Now, you can group this whatever way you want. I know that doing these two together is going to make it a lot easier. What's 3 times 3? 9. Okay, so we do that twice, and then now you have 9 times 9, which is 81. Okay, so group them together to make it easier on yourself. Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I like to do it just because it's a little bit easier and makes things go a little bit faster. So now down here, let's do number 7. So we have 5 cubed, 5 to the third power. Now remember, that's not 5 times 3. That 3 means there's 3 5s being multiplied. So 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, so all you're doing here is just multiplying this out. So like I said before, you can group them together to make it easier on yourself. Okay, if you group these two together, what's 5 times 5? 25. So we have 25 times 5 now. Okay, so we just multiply this out. What's 5 times 5 again? 25. And then we do 5 times 2 plus 2 is 12. 125 would be your answer. Okay, so you got to have all of this written out and then solve it. Okay, so now let's do number 12. Okay, number 12. So this is 7/10, 0.7 to the third power. The exponent for 9 was 2 to the 8th power. Okay, so number 12 was 0.7 cubed. Okay, so that means it's 0.7, 7/10, times 0.7 times 0.7. Okay, there's 3 of them. Now, since there's a decimal, it does not change anything with the multiplication. That decimal only affects the answer. Okay, so you can treat these as just 7s and just multiply it out. Or you can put the decimal in it into the multiplication. It's totally up to you. Because remember, the decimal does not mean anything until you get your answer. So basically, this is just what's 7 times 7? 49. Now, since we have our answer, this is where we have to move our decimal. So remember, all you do is go back up and look at how many numbers are after a decimal point. Well, in this one, there's 1. Okay? And then down here on this one, there's only 1 again. So at the end, we have to move our decimal 2 times. So remember, we go to the right and move it left. So your answer is 0.49. But we're not done yet because we only did 2. We still have one more 7/10 we have to multiply. So then we just multiply it out again. So 7 times 9 would be 63. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 6, 34. Okay, so now we go back up and look at our numbers again to see how many times we have to move our decimal. Well, in this one, there's 2 numbers after the decimal point. This one is still just 1. So now I know I have to move it 3 times at the end. 1, 2, 3. So your answer is 343 thousandths. 0.343. Okay, so that's how those work. So they want you to write it in expanded form like this and then solve it. So I want you guys to do 9, 10, 11. 9, 10, and 11. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes to do those. Write them out and then solve them. Okay, if you have any questions, just ask. Take your time. So number 9, we have 2 to the 8th power. So that means it's not 2 times 8. It's 2 times 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 2. Okay, there's 8 of them. So when you do this, like I said before, it's best to try to group them together as easy as possible, just to make it easier on yourselves. Okay, so since we have 8 of them, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 of them together. Because 2 times 2 times 2 is what? 8. Okay, and then I do it again. 2 times 2 times 2, 8. Now, all we have left is just 2 of them, so what's 2 times 2? 4. So now we have 8 times 8 times 4. So let's start with these. What's 8 times 8? 64. Okay, so now we have 64 times 4. So let's go ahead and multiply that out. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so 4 times 6 would be 24 plus 1 is 256. Okay, so you have to write it all the way out and then solve it. Okay, any questions on that one? All right, number 10 is 3 to the 6th power. So that means it's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, so once again, I'm going to make it easier on us and group these together. So I'm going to do 3 again. So 3 times 3 times 3 would be what? 27. Okay, times, I'm going to do it again. So 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So now we're just multiplying 27 times 27. Okay, so 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 2 is 14 plus 4, 18. I'm going to run out of room. Okay, so I drop down. 2 times 7 is 14 again. Okay, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So we add it all up, and we get 729. All right, the last one here is 1.1 to the 4th power, 1 and 1/10 to the 4th power. So that means there's 4 of them. Okay, so with these being a decimal, I'm just going to do 2 together. I'm not going to go crazy with 3. So you can. It's totally up to you. However you guys want to group them together, or if you guys do 3 together, do 4 together, it's totally up to you. Okay, it's whatever is easiest for you. On this, with being decimals, I just like to do 2 together. All right, so then all you do, remember, the decimal has nothing to do with the actual multiplication. It just affects the answer. So 1 times 1 would be 1. 1 times 1 would be 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1 again. Okay, so we have 121. Now we have to move our decimal. Well, if I look, there's 1 here, 1 there. So that means a total of 2. So 1, 2. So for these two, your answer is 1.21. Well, the good thing is you're multiplying the same thing on the other side. So that answer is the same. So now you have 1.21 times 1.21. We can go ahead and multiply that out. Okay, so 1 times 1, 1. 1 times 2, 2. 1 times 1, 1. So we drop down. 2 times 1, 2. 2 times 2, 4. 2 times 1, 2. Drop down again. You got to put 2 zeros because we're jumping all the way over there now. So 1 times 1, 1. 1 times 2, 2. 1 times 1, 1. So we add it all up. Okay, so now I got to go back and look and see how many times we have to move our decimal. Well, this number, we have 2 after the decimal point. This one, we have 2 after the decimal point. So that means a total of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So your answer is 1 and 4,641 10,000ths. 1.4641. Okay, so that's how those work. Any questions on exponents? All right. So we're going to move into lesson 2 now, which if you're probably going to need your book for this because we're going to be talking about order of operations. So on page 442, that would help because it's talking about order of operations. All right, so in lesson 2, we talked about numerical expressions. So numerical expressions are just expressions that just have numbers. So there's no variables, no letters, okay? But you have a bunch of different operations. So you're going to have addition, you're going to have subtraction, multiplication, and division, sometimes all in one expression. Now remember, to solve these, you have to follow order of operations. So order of operations was you always start with those grouping symbols, the parentheses. Okay, we talked about how every time you start over order of operations, you start with the grouping like parentheses. Then you move on to exponents. Okay, and after exponents, we move on to that stage of multiplication or division. Now, I know it looks like multiplication comes first, but it only comes first left to right. So remember, whatever comes first between multiplication and division, left to right, like reading a book, that's the one you do first. So then after that, you do addition or subtraction. Same thing, the one that comes first left to right. Every time, it's like reading a book. All right, so on example number 1 here, we have 48 divided by the parentheses of 3 plus 3 minus 2 squared. All right, so this is a numerical expression. There's a bunch of different operations, and they're all just numbers, so there's no variables. So per order of operations, we start with parentheses. So we do have parentheses, so that's where we're going to start. Everything else, you just copy down again. So this 48, I bring it down with the next stage. The division sign stays 2. Now I do my parentheses. So we do 3 plus 3. Well, that's 6. Minus 2 squared. All right, so now we're done with parentheses. The next stage is exponents. Well, we have an exponent, so that's where we go next. So we rewrite everything else. And then now we do 2 squared. Now remember, that's 2 times 2, 4. Okay, so we've done our parentheses. We've done our exponents. Now we're on the stage of multiplying or dividing. Well, we do have division. So that's our next stage. So 48 divided by 6, 8. And you just rewrite the other stuff. Now all we have left is subtraction, so we just subtract. 8 minus 4, 4. So remember, as you go down, this is why we write them, they get shorter until you get your answer. All right? So let's do another one. Let's do number 1 down here. 7 plus 2 times 3. And we'll do number 3. 16 minus parentheses of 4 plus 5. Okay. So on number 1 here, we have 7 plus 2 times 3. So per order of operations, we start with parentheses. Well, we don't have any parentheses, so we just go down to the next stage. So we look for exponents. We don't have any exponents, so we keep moving. Now we're on the stage of multiplying or dividing. Okay, so we do have multiplication, so that's what we have to do before addition. So I just rewrite everything else. 7 in our addition. Now we do 2 times 3. Well, that's 6. Now all we have left is our addition, so we just add that. 7 plus 6, 13. Okay, number 3. So we start order of operations all over again. Every time you get a new expression, you just start over. Okay, so we start with parentheses. Well, we do have parentheses, so that's what we're going to have to do first. Everything else just gets written down the next stage. So 16 in your subtraction. Now 4 plus 5 would be 9. So then we don't have any exponents. We don't have any multiplication or division, but we do have subtraction. So we do 16 minus 9. Our answer is 7. Okay, so just follow order of operations every time, and that's how it works. So I want you guys to go ahead and do 7, 8, and 9. So do 7, 8, and 9. Take your time, and we'll go from there.